Some remakes never should have seen the light of day. Number 4 on this list bombed so hard it barely made back half of its budget, while number 2 completely disrespected the original with CGI so bad it looked straight to DVD. And don't even get me started on number 8. It's a remake that somehow got everything wrong. The original Point Break already got its unofficial remake with The Fast and the Furious. And let's be real, it's basically the same movie with cars instead of surfboards. But unlike Fast and Furious, the 2015 Point Break remake was a total flop. The reboot completely missed what made the original so special. Instead of focusing on the bond between the characters, the remake just dialed up the stunts and forgot about the chemistry, resulting in a lifeless film that grossed just $133 million worldwide, nowhere near enough to justify its budget. 1959's Ben-Hur is one of those untouchable classics. Lavish costumes, groundbreaking set designs, and action sequences that were way ahead of their time. Adjusted for inflation, the original made an insane $1.5 billion at the box office. So when they tried to remake it 57 years later, they probably thought they could ride on nostalgia alone. But the 2016 version was a complete disaster. It made just $94 million on a $100 million budget, less than the original grossed, even without inflation. Loaded with bad CGI and editing, the remake felt more like a cheap direct-to-DVD movie than a Hollywood epic. The original Conan the Barbarian wasn't high art, but it was a cult classic, thanks mostly to Arnold Schwarzenegger's unforgettable performance. The 1982 film made $80 million, 4 times its budget. So it's kind of shocking that the 2011 remake couldn't even break even. Jason Momoa may be a star now, but back then he didn't have the same pull. The film only grossed $63 million on a $90 million budget, and fans were left wishing for the scrapped King Conan movie we never got, which almost had the Wachowskis directing. Sometimes Hollywood doesn't know when to leave well enough alone, and Funny Games is a perfect example of that. The original 1997 Austrian version was a taut psychological thriller that left most of the violence to your imagination. The 2007 remake is a shot-for-shot replica of the original, just set in the US with English-speaking actors. But the remake fell flat, grossing only half of its $15 million budget. It's one of those films that didn't need a redo, especially when the original was so intense in its own right. In 1972, the Poseidon Adventure was a smash hit. A group of survivors trying to escape a capsized luxury liner. It was peak disaster movie fun. But by the time the 2006 remake came around, disaster movies were on their way out. They dropped adventure from the title and replaced it with by-the-numbers action. Even though Poseidon made $181 million, it wasn't nearly enough to cover its hefty budget and marketing costs. By then, the disaster genre was sinking fast, pun intended. The original Wicker Man is a suspenseful classic and one of Christopher Lee's best films. But the 2006 remake is easily one of Nicolas Cage's worst. Where the original delivered tension and terror, the remake gave us, well, not that. It was so ridiculous it almost tarnished the legacy of the original. And while the 2006 version barely scraped together less than its $40 million budget, it's more famous for one thing: memes. Yes, Cage's infamous "not the bees" scene became an internet sensation. It's unintentionally hilarious, and honestly, the meme might be more popular than the film itself. The original Old Boy is a South Korean masterpiece, gripping, shocking, and a cult favorite worldwide. So, when Spike Lee took on the 2013 remake, expectations were sky high, but it fell flat. Instead of recapturing the intensity of the original, the remake got bogged down with political commentary, losing what made Old Boy great in the first place. The result was a box office disaster. The remake pulled in just $5 million, a fraction of its budget, and left fans wondering why it even happened. Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho changed the game in 1960. The shower scene alone became one of the most iconic moments in cinematic history, and the film pulled in an impressive $50 million at the box office. But fast forward to 1998, and we get one of the most pointless remakes of all time. This version is a shot-for-shot remake, adding absolutely nothing new, except for an inflated $60 million budget. It was a blatant cash grab, and audiences didn't fall for it. The remake bombed with just $37 million, and honestly, that's a good thing. Otherwise, we might be drowning in pointless shot-for-shot remakes of classic films. The original Straw Dogs from 1971 was a brutal, controversial thriller that didn't hold back. But when the 2011 remake toned down the violence, it lost what made the original so shocking. Worse still, the remake seemed to glorify the violence it did show. Audiences weren't having it. With a $25 million budget and a meager $11 million return, the remake wasn't just a flop, it was a total misfire. The original Red Dawn is an iconic 80s movie. With a young cast that included Patrick Swayze and Charlie Sheen, it was the first PG-13 movie ever released, and it stirred up controversy with its violent Cold War-era plot. Fast forward to 2012, and we got a remake no one asked for. The Soviet Union was swapped out for North Korea, but the remake lost all the satire and tension that made the original work. It pulled in $50 million at the box office, but that didn't come close to covering its $65 million budget.